Thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has condemned the killing of innocent civilians in West Wallagga Zone, Oromia Regional State. In a statement issued this morning, the Prime Minister also extended his deepest condolences to the bereaved families who lost their loved ones and the people of Ethiopia. Our enemies are trying to deter our ongoing journey by killing our citizens. However, by standing united and paying sacrifices, we will continue our journey, he said. The Prime Minister added that the federal government, in collaboration with regional states, is taking retaliation measures against perpetrators. He urged the people not to fall to the trap of destructive forces, but to join hands with the government in bringing perpetrators to justice and ending recurrence of similar attacks. The UAE today sent an aid plane containing 46 metric tons of food and medical supplies to Ethiopia in support of the humanitarian assistance in the Tigray region. Mohammed Salem Al-Rashidi, UAE ambassador to Ethiopia, said the UAE has a strong relationship with Ethiopia, and this assistance is part of the directives of the UAE's wise leadership to provide humanitarian and development assistance to brotherly and friendly people. The UAE is working to support the humanitarian and development situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region, which is suffering from the impact of war and the spread of COVID-19, he added. The UAE has also pledged $5 million to support displaced people on the Ethiopian-Sudanese border in cooperation with the World Food Programme and other international organizations. An Ethiopian scholar says Egypt's president is trying to overstretch the issue of GERD to cover his own domestic political crisis facing Egypt. Sisi's blatant remark on the GERD brings nothing for Ethiopia's invincible stance on its mega project, the scholar underscored. Goshu Melissa reports.
The mindset of Egyptian politicians seems to be unchanged on monopolizing Abyei River, ignoring Ethiopia's natural and legal rights to develop its natural resources properly. These politicians remain stagnant in colonial-based agreements, said geographer Elias Abichakra. Egypt, which has turned a deaf ear to Ethiopia's call to come to the negotiable table through an unconcealed remark over the dam, warning that there would be severe regional instability if it loses a single drop of water. Talking to TV languages, Elias Abichakra said Egypt's president is trying to overstretch the issue of care to cover his domestic political crisis facing Egypt.
War with the neighbor is always used to cover internal problems. And Egypt has a lot of problems. I can tell you that when you have, that recently they have 40,000 political prisoners, and there are a lot of social problems in Egypt. You know that the military are involved in the economy, and they are always winning the bids to different projects, and the private sector is complaining because there are not the possibility of using the opportunity to intervene in the Egyptian economy is very, very thin. And well, I think the president of Egypt is using, he needs a scapegoat, and the scapegoat is the Nile Dam. That's what I think.
Elias said the mindset of Egyptian politicians seemed to be unchanged on monopolizing Abyei River.
The Egyptians haven't changed their mindsets, and they are still with the period of the pharaohs, and 4,000 years ago. And Ethiopia has 120 million people. Egypt has 120 million people. I don't talk about the Nile Basin. I think Kenya has got 55 million people, Uganda 45 million people. So are we going to continue with the mindset of the Egyptians 4,000 years ago? So whatever they think, one day, whether they like it or not, we're going to use the Nile water. Now, what Ethiopia has always said, equitable use of the Nile water is absolutely right.
He underscored that Sisi's provocative comment cannot be a threat for Ethiopians' invisible stance, but solving the issue in roundtable discussion enhances mutual benefits of the region.
I know the history of my country. For nearly 150 years, every ruler has to handle war. The Emperor Todros had the British, as Emperor Johannes IV had the Dervish Sudanese, then Emperor Milik had the Italians, Emperor Haile Selassie had the Italians and the Somalis, etc. So I think the threat is not going to make Ethiopians shiver or I don't know what, because we're not afraid of going to war. We don't like war, but I don't think we're afraid of war.
Ethiopia should intensify diplomatic works aggressively and the people should strengthen their support for the dam, he urged.
Scholars say Ethiopia will never change its firm stance on the issue of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, irrespective of external pressures. In a webinar session about Ethiopia's perspective on the GERD, hosted by the Italian Center for African Studies, Ambassador Fisaha Shawol blamed the unpredictable stand of Egypt and Sudan on GERD that has long been wedged to colonial mentality. Emmanuel Jorge tells us more.
The Italian Center for African Studies, Centro Studi Africani, hosted a webinar which discussed the Ethiopian stand on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The webinar discussed historical background and the current situation on trilateral negotiations between Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt, with Ethiopian scholars and negotiators representing Ethiopia. Director General of Neighboring Countries in Ethiopia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Fisaha Shawol, underscored that the unmanageable stand of Egypt and Sudan originates from agreements during the colonial era. Fisaha stated that the colonial mentality of Egypt and Sudan, as it is seen in the colonial agreements, is totally unjust because it excluded the source of the water to consider. He says Ethiopia has been asking for consultations on mega projects Egypt and Sudan built on the river but rejected. Mentioning that Ethiopia is a country with a smaller resource of surface water, legal officer in International Affairs Directorate at Ethiopia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs Lemlem Fisaha said the recent remark by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi can never affect Ethiopia's stand to solve the issue only in negotiation. Associate Professor of Hydrology in Addis Ababa University Yilmaz Selashi noted that the principles of agreement states that there should not be a unilateral use but an equitable utilization and water share for all riparian countries of the Abai River. The primary purpose of the disputed dam is electricity production to relieve Ethiopia's acute energy shortage and for electricity export to neighboring countries. With a planned installed capacity of 6.5 gigawatts, the dam will be the largest hydroelectric power plant in Africa when completed, as well as the 7th largest in the world.
As the negotiation between Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt is in recess, a blatant remark by Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt about the use of the Nile appears to be provocative. Responding to the president's audacious comments, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, said Ethiopia won't relent to any other option than negotiation. Alula Teklamariam reports.
The dispute between Ethiopia and Egypt over the contentious hydropower dam Ethiopia is erecting over the river Abai seems to take another turn following Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's blatant remarks about the use of the Nile. Though Ethiopia unequivocally asserted that the dam will cause no significant harm to the downstream countries, Egypt always opts to ignite disputes over the dam. Taking Ethiopia's internal political quagmire as an opportunity, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt Tuesday threw warning on his televised address. Sisi said there would be severe regional consequences if Egypt's water supply were affected by the giant hydropower dam being built by Ethiopia.
احنا ما بنتكلمش كتير. بس انا بقول للناس كلها ما حدش هيقدر ياخد نقطة مية من مصر. واللي عايز يجرب يجرب. احنا ما بنهددش حد. لو سمحتوا ما احنا عمرنا ما هددنا ودايما حوارنا رشيد جدا و يعني صبور جدا، لكن محدش هيقدر ياخد نقطة مية من مصر، وإلا هيبقى فيه حالة من عدم الاستقرار في المنطقة لا يتخيلها أحد، لا يتخيلها أحد، ومحدش يتصور إنه يقدر يبقى بعيد عن قدرتنا. لا، أنا عمري ما اتكلمت كده وأنا ما هددتش حد. بقول تاني، مية مصر لا مساس بيها، والمساس بيها خط أحمر، وهيبقى رد فعلنا في حالة المساس بيها أمر هيأثر على استقرار المنطقة بالكامل. شكرا.
Replying to the president's audacious remarks Wednesday, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, said both countries have no option to reach an agreement other than negotiation. Dina said throwing threatening comments will bring no change but strains relations.
Nile is our gift, a transboundary river, of which 86% of this water emanates from Ethiopia. Though Ethiopia is not utilizing it to its full capacity, we know that Ethiopia is eligibly, we have a right to use it. Now, Ethiopia believes strongly that Nile should be a source of cooperation, not a source of conflict, not a source of confusion. It should be a source of cooperation. This is what we are telling our downstream countries. That is why we are regularly and faithfully attending the trilateral talks. That is why we are always opting for amicable solutions, win-win solutions. That is why we are always saying we are out for win-win solutions. I think these instances, these are positions, equally benefits the downstream countries that are Egypt and Sudan. And I think this is the only option. This is the option that can benefit all of us. Let's everybody remind himself or herself about common benefits, not about threats. The threats do not help. They don't. Nobody could benefit from threats. Threats of wars are destructive. They then do not benefit anyone. No one could be a winner. Everybody will lose. So I think we should desist from those sorts of things.
Ethiopia, unrelenting with its firm stance of building the dam on its own resource, set us to execute the second filling by the coming rainy season. The country repeatedly rebuked Egypt's desire to monopolize the Nile water, which does not contribute a drop of water.
እና ዳንግላ የሚለው ስያሜ የተሰጠ በመጀመሪያ ዋግምራ ወይም ሰቆጣ ከሚባል አካባቢ ላይ 7 ወንድማማች አገዎች እንደመጡና ወንድማማቾች ወደዚህ አካባቢ ይመጣሉ። ሲያዩት ለምለም ቦታ ሆኖ ያገኙታል ሲፈልጉ እና በቋንቋቸው ሲነጋገሩ ዳንግ ራሱ ዳንግ ነው ስሙ። የት ሄደ እላ ማለት ባገውኛ የለም ማለት ነው። እዚያ አካባቢ የለም እና ዳንግላ የሚለው ስያሜ ከዚህ አንጻር የመጣ ነው።
የከተማዋ ጉዳይ ከበፊቱ አሁን የተሻሻለ ነገር ነው ያለው።
Different political party leadership have called upon all stakes to play share to conduct free, fair, and democratic elections across the country, Kazahun Chani reports.
Different political party leadership called upon all stakes to contribute their share for the successful implementation of the 6th general election. And not party acting president expressed the importance of elections to strengthen democratization and democratic culture.
Well, Ethiopia has passed through so many ups and downs over its almost half a decade history, starting from the overthrow of the emperor in 1974. After that, during the period when the Derg regime was in power, during the 17 years period the Derg regime was in power, we have passed through too many difficulties the country has passed. Over the last 30 years as well, I cannot differentiate between the last 3 years and the last 30 years, by the way, because the ruling party remains the same. It's EPRDF, the TPLF-led EPRDF, which rules this country for the last 30 years. The only thing we see over the last 3 years is that we have EPRDF, less TPLF. Okay, we have EPRDF, less TPLF. Those same parties, the OPDO, the Amman National Democratic Movement, and the South Nations and Nationalities. These are the parties basically which we have currently. Well, there is a change. There is a change in the leadership of the country at large, but the fact that we have a change at the leadership level doesn't necessarily mean or doesn't really reflect on how the country is going over the last 3 years. So basically for me, to put it that way, well, even though there are some attempts to introduce some changes, I can't say things have changed in a better direction. If you see the instability which is currently taking place in my country, what we see is the instability is getting even much deep-rooted than it was in the past. Just the recent, I can take the recent example. The day before yesterday, there was a massacre of my fellow citizens, by my fellow citizens, unfortunately. You know what? It's not something that some other people came from outside and invaded us and massacred my people, but my people massacred my people. That's heartbreaking thing. Okay, that's what we do. That's what we see in day-to-day life of my country today. Okay, as for me, well, there are some things which are taking place, but I rather don't want to focus on those, but rather I would like to focus on what actually is taking place in this country. My country is getting destabilized from day to day. Okay, the government is not in control of what's actually going on. Unfortunately, the government, which is expected to defend its citizens, okay, against whatever takes place, is not taking that measure. It's very unfortunate, though.
Meanwhile, Musa Adam, external relations head of the Afar People's Party, on his part underscored that elections provide an opportunity to ascertain the popular will in regard to the governance of the country. And he said that the party believes to conduct a free and fair election.
We've been working harmoniously so far, and we believe as a party that our focus should be, the only about production and provision of winning ideas and concepts instead of allegations and blackening and blackmailing and fake newses and blah blah. So we believe in unity, regional unity and national integration as well. And we've been working actually very much on the unity of the nation as well. And my party, of course, we believe in federalism, and we need to apply the real, not what we have been calling federalism, but we aim to establish new, real, fresh federalism that each and every Ethiopian citizen can see themselves as an Ethiopian, proud Ethiopian, who can be represented and represent as well. So.
And finally, in an exclusive interview with ETV, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, expressed the need to maintain the ongoing sweeping reforms as it has multifaceted advantages to all Ethiopians. Take a listen to him.
Well, the reform is sweeping, as I have said, it's all-rounded. It has been political, economic, social, and cultural. It has been also in the spheres of diplomatic relations. People have benefited from it, and there are more benefits also coming in. There are challenges as well. But with every opportunity, naturally there are challenges, and the Ethiopians are aware of them.
The spokesperson further underscored that the leadership is committed to identifying the challenges and strengthening opportunities of the 3-year-old reform with the intention of galvanizing the country's socio-economic progress.
The leadership is quite aware of the challenges as well as the benefits. As a matter of, we don't have a time to look behind. It's time to look forward. It's time to strengthen our country. It's time to overcome all the hurdles, social, economic, and cultural hurdles that are natural in the life of the countries like ours, because we are in the process of reform. And as in the day Ethiopia will prevail, her people will prevail.
You're watching Addis News Hour. A quick reminder of today's headlines. Ethiopian scholar says